Hello, everyone. Today we are continuing with the previous discussion on the topic of conducting meaningful research. In the last discussion, we attempted to define what we mean by meaningful research. So today we are going to explore what are all the reasons, what are all the factors that stops us or that help us in conducting meaningful research. Right. Okay. So what do you? There are many reasons, obviously, that stops us from conducting meaningful research. Right. We've already established
Right,
in the last discussion that there are very small percentage of research which are considered meaningful across the globe.
right.
Right. So, what are the reasons that you think are the key factors that is stopping us from, or that is helping in some part in conducting meaningful research?
Uh, okay, I think there are two fundamental issues. The first one is our not being aware that researchers not being aware that meaningful research is this, or the research should be meaningful, and that kind of philosophical understanding, a lack of that is there. So we tend to think that, okay, whatever I think is important for medicine, for my patient, that kind of attitude. So I think that's comes from the lack of
Right. So,
understanding of
so the
philosophy.
meaningful research is not even considered as a goal. The problem is not recognized at all.
Correct,
Yeah.
correct. I think we would have also done the same thing in the
Yeah.
early stages, but uh, we have done something like that. The next part, I think this I have told a lot of people also, is the lack of infrastructure in um, big universities and hospitals. Here, I mean by infrastructure as physical as well as human resource.
Right. So, infrastructure is an interesting problem. Again, this is also not very well recognized, and the common problem is whenever you say infrastructure, it is referring to a particular instruments and machines.
Right.
Mostly, that's what is referring to. Um,
Mhm.
uh, I uh, I'm not sure that many of research, meaningful research in physiotherapy at least, we need instruments that require lakhs and lakhs of investment, right?
Sure.
What we need is a system. Say, for example, you need to have a research team or a department that is allocated to research, like you have neurophysiotherapy or musculoskeletal. You really need a department which physiotherapy. First of all, there a system has to exist, which as far as I know, that there is no such system in place, right? Have you heard of where they actually have
OP for neurophysiotherapy and OP for, you mean by that, or
yeah, yeah,
uh, individual departments
uh,
of neuro
yeah,
and
I
ortho?
mean a department in where a team of people who primarily
Dedicated to
to work for
research.
research. Yeah, like R and
I'm
D, R&D in physio.
um, uh, not really. Please go on.
Yeah. So that's one part is at least in Western Union, you have the culture of having research labs. And many physiotherapists are also are working in labs, and many of them are heading in labs. One of the first name that comes to my mind is John Scholz, who was where he worked in motor control and biomechanics, motor learning, and so on. These kind of labs do require instruments that might be expensive unless you work in a basic science, right? But if it's in a clinical areas we are working, right? I think the instruments, whatever that is required, or that is not that expensive, at least not that expensive of even the kind of instrument that we have in electrotherapy. What's your take on that?
Um, uh, when I say infrastructure, I never mean by uh, a machine or something like that. Because those research have been done long back. We have a sort of a high quality evidence to say whether it works or not. So it's not needed. What I mean by infrastructure is, especially the physical infrastructure, is a good OPD, and also, if possible, specialized clinics. Say, for example, having a stroke clinic for inside your own clinical setup, or developmental disability clinic, or just the low back pain, chronic pain clinic, something like that. Why I think is valuable is, if we have a specialized clinic, then I think inherently we tend to think ourselves as specializing in that. So it puts more pressure on us to read more on that, get better, something like that. At the same time, I think that is the first stepping stone to have able to do good research on patients.
Right. So you meant to say our clinics or the labs, which we needed to improve with having more patients, not necessarily having expensive equipments.
Correct. And more patients and who are treated with good standard care. Not necessarily some sort of care which is of lesser value. Again, patient-centric care, because that brings the patients more, and they have sort of a bonding with your clinic, bonding with the therapist, because I think those are all vital when you are asking a patient, can you join our research program? All right. So I think that kind of alliance happens when you have a good infrastructure, which is relatively simple to develop, I think.
I think this is an important problem that you identified. It's important because without that, you can't really do any research, leave alone whether it is meaningful research or not.
Correct,
right?
correct.
Because
correct.
you really need that much input of patients. And again, this is something that is often ignored. As I was saying, that whenever we talk about infrastructure, the first thing most people come up with is, okay, we need to get this machine and that machine and to measure something and so on and so forth. But that's, again, we are trying to ape what we have seen somewhere, in a like a lab, in a clinical lab and so on. But we don't really have funds to establish. There's nothing wrong in having basic science lab, but I don't think most universities can afford to have a proper lab which can produce a research output. Because if you're thinking of mechanics lab and all, mostly it runs in crowds only. So it's
And also, the output they produce may not be clinical output. They are producing outputs
and
which
they
are
have lots of
pseudoscience.
interdisciplinary work that is being done. It's not physio research per se is happening. Now you have people from biomechanics, motor learning, motor control, people from different fields work together. That's when such labs can produce successful outcomes. So as far as Indian setup is concerned, given the funding constraints that we have, right? What we need to really work on in establishing our clinic, a standard of care, and have sufficient patients coming in academic setup, because without such patients, no, we can't really start doing research. In my view, this is often, you know, very rarely considered as a problem, but this is, yeah.
And also I see that the university tells the staff to do research as though they can take it from their pocket and throw it out without without thinking of how to build a research-based university. For that, you need a good amount of patients who are coming to you, who come from far and beyond, who also, this we have tried many times. We have asked people to, do you want to join our research?
Right.
And we want to follow your patient for 1 month. And
Right.
invariably the answer is they don't come more than 2 days
Yeah,
or 3 days. We can't find them. We can't follow them up. These all happens. These are all problems. There is no question about it. But I think if we have a good system of documenting your patient and following up them properly, then there is a that's the first step. It's not necessarily the complete thing, but it's the first step to get it.
And also, people not coming regularly is a problem, right? And we see everybody says that, but what have we done for that? You know, did we come up? It's not like if we have not solved the problem, that's all right. But what are all the attempts that we have come up with that we have to ensure that the patients are coming back by simply, and I have seen in most cases that but an external factor is often pointed out. An external factor which is often not in our hand, then we point that out. Oh, that's why. It may be true, but internal factors is what is in our hand, right? So we really have to work together to figure this out and have sufficient patience for us to do research.
Right, because if there is no availability, there is no way we can do research. So the availability and feasibility is the first step for any kind of research. And one of the steps to have some sort of regularity or bringing them back and things like that would be a sort of a good care and having a good rapport with your patient. That's in our hand. As you said, the other points are not in our hand. So at least we can try that.
I'm sure a lot of people are thinking, oh, he's talking like that. What did he do? How many patients that he is having in his OPD and how this managed. The fact of the matter is I haven't solved this problem myself yet, right? But there are if there are certain factors you can't do it, you still have to come up with ways of doing. Say, for example, if you're working in a place where you have other centers in which if they're having relatively better, you got to network with them. You need to develop context with them. We need to develop network with them. And also you need to have a database from which you can actually call patients back just for 1 day if you're doing a cross-sectional study. So these are all the things that I do. And more importantly,
and also remember that this is a marathon. This is not going to happen in 1 year or 2 years. Have a target of 5 years, 10 years. Nobody is going to become a research center in 1 year or 2 years or something like that. It's going to take lots and lots of time. So build up.
So that's how, from my case, in many of my research, first of all, it takes time, and you find out places where you can get patients and develop contacts with them and work with. Again, if you're developing network is simply not just calling and asking for help, right? We need to offer them something back. That's a professional courtesy, right? And while this is, I feel like a lot of people are not doing it in a professional way. right? So we got to understand that they need to get something back, and so on and so forth. And
Reciprocity is the
yeah,
reciprocity is the base of any friendship
relationship,
to
yeah, yeah,
relationship,
right.
right? Mm.
So that so basically, if you are into research and you are doing it for some time, we need to become resourceful. So if you ask me, like, this is probably 15 years since I'm working. If you ask me, like, 5 years before, 7 years before, and today, even though the patients that we have did not improve much, but what is I can see is that the resourceness that one is able to have, that's what has developed more, and that is what is allowing you to conduct more research. And one another thing, again, most people never gets when I say them, that's why I don't do RCTs. That's another way of
Right,
dealing with the problem, right?
right.
I wish we really have a very good RCT plan, ideas that
Ideas.
are there. Two case studies which we published, one in facial palsy, another in stroke. Very good potential ideas to do RCT, but that's why I don't do RCT, because that so this is these are all the constraints, working within the constraints, rather than just saying
And
that
also,
it's a problem.
I wish people in power um, also think like this and try to move the target there rather than just telling us where is the 5 papers this year or three
Yeah.
papers this year. So along with that, you also need to have a way of making this happen. And one of the ways of making this happen is availability of patients, which happens through better OPD numbers, I suppose.
Right. So to summarize this major factor, that is infrastructure of having clinics that have sufficient patients, is that there are some problems that doesn't have a immediate solution, right? So in case if you don't have, the suggestion that we offer is you need to work on getting other people in other nearby centers, and have to try to do some multi-centered or collaborative work, right? So if you're having 10 patients in your clinic, another 4 people join, that means that 40 patients pool for a month, right? So out of that 40 patients, you might get at least 10, 15 who might be eligible. It's doable. We just need to find like-minded people. They are there everywhere. They may not be very prominent. They are there. So we need to find out. When you make this attempt, my experience, 7 out of 10 attempts will fail, right? So we can't simply say that I've tried, it didn't work. That we have to do that after 7, 8, 9, and 10, you have to do probably even 9 out of 10, but that one will work. So we need to keep trying it, because I also see that sometimes we send email to some, asking for information or help. They don't reply for whatever reason that might be. So that doesn't mean we should get offended and not send ask for help from others. We are the one who need help. We just have to keep asking. And I'm very positive there are people who like-minded people are there who also would love to collaborate and work together. We need to find a way. So moving on, the second part of this is human resources that you are referring to. So what about that?
Human resource, I mean, what you already highlighted, the network of people you have in your disposal, uh, who can bounce back your ideas, uh, also who have some sort of resource for patients or literature or something like that. And along with that, you need people who have understanding of research methods as well as statistics. And sadly, the statistics people who usually are part of, I'm not talking about any particular university. Most of the universities who have a statistician is good for doing p-value or t-test or something. He is not I don't see people having so much of information about designing the study and telling us what are the flaws we have and things like that. So that is a real problem, I think. That is lack of good biostatisticians who can work with physiotherapists, because there may be a lot of biostatisticians who work with big pharma and things like that, which we may not be able to afford also. So we need that. Uh, whenever somebody comes and asks me, I'm going to do this, tell them that go and talk to Thangamani and then come to me. he has he has a statistical understanding. So finish that and then then start. So you need somebody who can that kind of human resource is what I mean by
Yeah. So that this is also it's pretty much linked with collaboration efforts
that. Right.
also.
Correct.
A lot of people wants to work together or collaborate. The thing is, in collaboration, as we just discussed, there's a lot of given. You have to bring something
Right.
to collaboration, right? So whatever that might be, but you need to choose what is required in a collaboration is either you have a resource from which you have good patient input, or you have skills. You have skills in literature search or literature review or writing, content expertise. If you are, if you're just early researcher, you may not have content expertise, and you got to recognize that also. And you need a methodological expertise also, right? That means if we need to improve on that. As far as statistics is concerned, I have a slightly different take, right? Anyone who conceives an idea for research must have more than fundamental understanding of data analysis. You can't really give your data to a statistician, however good he is or expertise. If you got to look at the data and see, because it was your idea, when you see the data, you should be able to see what the sense that you get. Of course, you may not be able to do certain actual analysis for which you need to go for statistician, but you really have to be able to look at the data with a naked eye, visualize the data, come up with some graphs and so on before actually doing this test and figure out what is it's actually saying. One of the simple examples, we all are familiar with the scatter plot and correlation. That's one line and it's there. But when 0.6 comes, all of us know that 0.6 means that it is moderate. But if no one thinks that what moderate means in terms of relationship between what moderate actually means. Now, this is not a knowledge only a statistician should possess, because we are the one who are interpreting the data.
No, I understand that you cannot have a zero understanding of the mathematics and what is arising from your study and things like that. But I'm just saying that you need somebody to, if you have a question in statistics or method, you need somebody to clarify that. Of course, you can do it by yourself.
Right.
That's not that's always possible, but that's not the point I'm making. I'm saying that if you have a group of people with different expertise, that's the bottom line. Who can, so what I'm trying to say is that makes the process slightly smoother with less resistance, because the more the resistance, people are running away from that. So you need a sort of a group of people who have different expertise and help you in formulating something, because already we know that some studies take years to plan, and if you are going and reading for each and everything, I'm assuming a lot of people are going to run. So I think that's what I mean by improving the infrastructure here.
I understood what I meant, but I clarified to the potential audience who are listening, because the common tendency to interpret this is that if you have a thing, if you have research and you need to go and consult a statistician. But the word consultation, I'm not sure that people gather that you should be able to talk to, this is what I want, and how will I do that? But in my experience, of course, you also know that a lot of people are unable to have that conversation, right? That, and also before you go for it, you should be able to understand what exactly that many of us struggle to tell what we are actually looking for, right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
one of the examples is Esther Thielen. She was a tremendously famous, and she worked on dynamic system theory, which if you give a data and do a sort of they do a complicated mathematics and integration and all sorts of things, and it gives you a result. And Esther Thielen didn't have the slightest clue of how to do any of those things, but she knew what is happening with that math.
Yeah.
What is the solution means.
Right.
So that is what you mean when you are saying that you need to have a conceptual understanding of what is happening to my data from 100 numbers. How did it come to one number with a p-value or something like that? So what is the process it underwent? So you need to understand that. That's the point.
Right. I think this is good enough for today.
Right.
And just to summarize it, there are many problems why we are unable to do meaningful research. And one of the problems that we discussed today is about lack of infrastructure and the human resources. Infrastructure here, we specifically emphasize more about having sufficient patients and having proper documentation system, having a patient database which is filled with the actual data. All are required because we can actually call some patients back if they're interested. You can make a call. That's how it works in many places, right? And the human resources is having people who have varied expertise. While we need fundamental knowledge on all aspects, but expert level knowledge is required in content, in research design. We haven't got into much about the design knowledge, which is also is fundamental. We needed to have. And if you don't have in the places where you work, you got to search and for people, because there are people who have this expertise. In India, we know there are some people who can really do. So we can't simply say, I don't know, or it's difficult. We need to search for people who are available, who are very much willing. And same goes with networking with other centers and so on. So these, if we take these efforts, these are all our suggestions to address this problem, so that this will lead to meaningful research, we hope. And again, if you're having any other suggestions or thoughts, feel free to comment. You're having any final thoughts?
Just a shout out to librarian Mrs. Vasumati, who can help in searching, which is a resource which we networked. So I tell all people to, if you have difficulties with searching, if you don't know how to search, again, this is part and parcel of your infrastructure. So get good people who can understand. And she's a good resource if you are trying to get something. So that's it.
All right. So we will meet again with exploring other problems that is stopping us from conducting meaningful research. Thanks for listening.
Bye-bye.